Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, vigils are held for a student raped and murdered in Cape Town as momentum grows in South Africa behind calls for nationwide protests this week against the levels of violence against women. The country has about 5 times the global average for rates of femicide. Also, riots in South Africa ramp up diplomatic tensions with Nigeria. It calls in South Africa's envoys to discuss protests in Johannesburg and Pretoria that have targeted foreign-owned businesses and left at least 5 dead. And in Zimbabwe, doctors go on strike demanding a 400% pay hike. Faced with a deepening economic crisis, their fears the action may spread to other embattled sectors. But first, sick of the levels of violence against women in their country, thousands of South Africans have been sharing the hashtag #AmINext protest on social media. Now, they're calling for country-wide demonstrations to coincide with the World Economic Forum that's planned for Cape Town on Wednesday. Frustration about the issues particularly high at the moment, following the gunning down last Friday of a female boxer and the rape and murder of a student. A vigil for 19-year-old Uyinene Mwetyana was held at the University of Cape Town on Monday night. President Cyril Ramaphosa acknowledged public fury over the deaths by making a rare mention of gender violence on Tuesday.
And this is a national crisis. Gender-based violence in South Africa has become a huge crisis. And it's something that we've got to address now. We've been horrified by the killing of Uyinene Mwetyana. But at the same time, we've had Leandre Vigils, who was also murdered. And these are acts of killings against women that we cannot accept.
Now, the levels of femicide in South Africa are about 5 times those of the global average. And anger over the impunity of perpetrators has seen hundreds of thousands of people sign a petition calling for the return of the death penalty for crimes against women. Our correspondents sent us this report.
This group of women meet every week at an NGO to share their stories. Stories of rape and domestic violence.
I had to stay with my mother's brother. Sorry. And then I got raped by my mother's brother. That I kept a secret to the family because they will never believe me.
And when there is rape, murder often follows. Something another young woman, Nosipiwo, has witnessed. Raped along with 2 of her friends, only she escaped. The others were killed. Nosipiwo was too scared to report the murders.
I'm not okay.
Sipokazi, who arranges the support sessions for the NGO, also has a story to tell. Her mother was beaten by her father-in-law.
I tried pulling her from the pool of blood. Her shoes was full of blood, her clothes. I couldn't even recognize her because her face was so big. Her eyes were covered with, because she was so swollen. Police that came after, 7 hours after, demanding to take photos.
In South Africa, the rate of femicide is 5 times higher than in Europe. President Ramaphosa has decided to take action. His government is organizing public consultations where women like Sipokazi are invited to discuss solutions. Legislation put in place so far to protect women has not reduced the violence.
We all sing the song that we've got the best constitution in the world. But as a nation, where are our principles?
Because the previous year, it was 1 woman killed every 4 hours. In the last financial year, it's 1 woman every 3 hours. So, yes, it feels like we are fighting a losing battle.
For the victims, it's a battle to bring about a whole new mindset. The land of Nelson Mandela is still controlled by its systems of patriarchy.
Now, at least 5 people have been killed in a surge of xenophobic violence in South Africa. Police have made more than 80 arrests following days of riots in Johannesburg and Pretoria that focused on foreign-owned businesses. On Tuesday, Nigeria summoned South Africa's envoy over the attacks. Nicolas Chemin has more.
A South African police officer fires rubber bullets on Tuesday to disperse protesters in the township of Alexandra in Johannesburg. The district has been rocked by 2 nights of xenophobic violence, and it has spread to neighbouring townships. Several people have been killed. Shops belonging to foreigners were burnt and looted. Such attacks have been frequent in recent years in a country where the unemployment rate is nearly 28%.
So like that, 6 months, 3 months is gone, again is broken, government no action, so how to standing there, who give it life? Just last night, police, I call police is open my gate, I coming out. If you know police not coming, is a beginning is dead, me and my uncle.
Local representatives visited Alexandra and condemned the violence.
There's a xenophobic sentiment underlying this about foreigners having to leave. We are a democracy, we are a democratic society. We can't allow people to take the law into their own hands. There is no country that doesn't have foreign nationals.
President Cyril Ramaphosa, in a video posted on Twitter, said xenophobic violence was unacceptable. His Nigerian counterpart Muhammadu Buhari expressed deep concern over attacks against Nigerians in South Africa. He has dispatched a special envoy to the country. Immigration from across the continent and Southeast Asia increased in the early 1990s, after the end of apartheid rule and the initial economic boom that followed. The worst wave of xenophobic violence was in 2008, when more than 60 people were reportedly killed.
In Zimbabwe, doctors went on strike on Tuesday demanding a 400% pay hike. With high rates of inflation and chronic shortages of fuel, power and foreign currency, the country is facing its worst economic crisis in a decade. The government has recently offered raises to civil servants, but teachers and doctors say it's not enough, and there are fears that the doctor strike may spread to other sectors. Ryan Truscott joins us now with more from Harare. Ryan, so we saw the strike kick off on Tuesday. How did that affect an already stretched healthcare system?
I spoke to a government doctor in Harare who called it a tricky situation because many junior doctors weren't at work today. The doctor said many senior colleagues have been intimidated during previous strikes, so they had reported for duty, but the lack of junior doctors means that surgeons and physicians have even less help and support than normal. So they'll likely have to scale back and attend to emergency cases only. It may also lead to closure of some state-run clinics in the next few days. We've seen in the past that strikes by doctors have taken a few days to gather momentum. I also spoke to a doctor in private practice in Harare. She says her clinic won't be referring patients to government hospitals. She described things as a bit chaotic at the moment.
So how likely is it that this action will be taken up by other government workers, as is feared?
Well, the murmurings of discontent are certainly getting louder. Just today, we had news that workers at the state broadcaster, the ZBC, have petitioned management for a pay rise. They're wanting an allowance paid now to cushion them while their council negotiates for higher wages. They say their families are surviving on one meal a day and that they are incapacitated. That's the same word that was used by the doctors, and it's a word used by most civil servants here at the moment, including teachers. Unlike the doctors, teachers haven't yet threatened to go on strike, although they have rejected a 76% pay rise offered by the government last month. That would have seen the lowest paid teacher getting the equivalent of just over 80 euros per month. Teachers form the bulk of the civil service here, and they are due to resume lessons at schools next week. It's a crucial time. Many children will be sitting public exams over the coming weeks, so the government will be hoping it can reach some sort of agreement so that teachers don't join the doctors on strike.
Thanks very much, Ryan Truscott, there for us in Harare. Now, from looking after patients to tending to her crops, we hear now from Zambian farmer Maria Zalumis, who quit her career as a cardiology nurse to put her heart and soul into taking over the family business. She's now one of the country's top tomato farmers, employing dozens of people. Have a look.
From nurse in Australia to successful farmer in Zambia, 34-year-old Maria Zalumis describes her unlikely change in occupation as an accident. She moved back to her home country after 12 years abroad due to her father's dementia. Maria couldn't find nursing work in Zambia because she was overqualified, so 6 months later decided to take over the reins of her family farm.
It's a very busy life. Today I woke up at 5 a.m. We've been harvesting since 5:30 this morning. It's basically I've got no time for anything else but the farming. But it's my passion. It's something that I love to do. So I don't look at it as a job. I look at it as a way of life. So for me, this is what I love.
Maria took over the farm in 2016. It's called Tuzini, an acronym for her and her siblings' names. The 40-hectare farm is located about 25 kilometers north of central Lusaka and produces predominantly tomatoes. It makes around $7,500 a year, most of which is plowed back into the farm. Maria is looking to grow her business, but remains focused on helping her community through literacy and building projects.
And I like to help the less privileged. I think that's one thing that really pushed me into farming was helping people who haven't been to school, giving them jobs, reducing poverty, and then, giving them a future.
The farm employs over 70 people from local communities, including farm manager Thomas Taulu, who has been with Tuzini for about 5 years.
When you're working, you need to make sure that you need to support the family. And as of that, Tuzini Farms has really helped me to get an income to help the family. Things are tough these days, but at least I've been able to help me in that one.
Senzeni Ndebele is a mother of 3 and a casual worker at Tuzini Farm. Because of her work, she has been able to send all of her children to school.
Now when we get paid, I pay school fees and my children can go to school. I keep paying every month and I have no problems.
Maria doesn't regret the career change because for her, farming is a labour of love.
And that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
Pakistan's intellectual capital, Lahore, is known as the Pearl of Punjab. But its image has been tarnished by terrorist attacks. During the 2016 Easter celebrations, a suicide bomber killed 75 people, including several children. Fanatics targeted not just Christians, but the entire Western-oriented part of Lahore society. The city is finally embracing life again, with modern infrastructure, preserving its heritage, and a cultural renaissance. Discover Lahore's vibrant energy in this episode of Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.